No, that's what I told people for years. Even as a Christian, I told people I got it knocked out in hockey. Did you? Yeah. This was fourth grade softball. I ran into a kid, kissed him, boom, and knocked them all out. But I told people for years, and I realized as a Christian, like, that's not what happened. But I told it so long, I believed it because it was a good story, right? Yeah. Right, right, right. After playing hockey all those years. Nice. Okay, we're going to start in about 30 seconds, so if you can find your seats. You always hate it when somebody like, everybody shut up. I'm going to talk now, you know. Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the Recovery Journey class today. I'm really grateful that you decided to spend some time out here today. And I know there's a lot of things you could be over at Disneyland or something or whatever, having lunch with your best friends. But you made a decision to come out here. So I first of all want to start by just telling you I'm really grateful for that. You also kind of outed yourself a little bit, right? They're like, you went to that class. Why'd you go there? What's going on in your life? Come on, bring it up here. Let's go. So yeah, you kind of out yourself a little bit. And that's a good thing, which I'm going to speak about in a few minutes, about outing yourself or being weak in front of people or vulnerable. So that's really good. But I want to start off. My name's Tim Sumerlin. I live in Denver, Colorado. And I've been a Christian about 40 plus years. All the stories you've heard before, all that stuff. I've been married for 37. I got 2 kids that are adults, way too old now. And I'll tell you about my family in just a moment. But I want to speak with you today about a ministry that we started years ago called Disciples in Motion. Maybe you've heard about that. We've recently redone the book, and we rebranded it into the Recovery Journey. So this is a recovery ministry that we run in a lot of different churches. It's a book that I wrote that you can use by yourself for recovery. I just went in and tried to do a different idea of recovery than maybe what you're used to. So I'm going to explain the concepts today. I'm going to show you how we put Jesus right in the middle of our recovery. Like we put him smack dab as the center of what we do. Okay, so I'm going to explain all that, and I'm going to run you through it, okay? Now, today you're going to see a lot of concepts. You're going to be like, hold on, explain that. I'm going to give you a lot of different concepts that you're going to have to kind of go home and chew on and work through. Recovery is not like a plug and play, let's go do it. It's one of those things that's like your life, as far as this is impacting me. Now I'm thinking about my childhood. Now my wife has asked me questions. I mean, it's one of those holistic pieces of us oftentimes. So just to be aware of that. Also, what I do today may trigger you a little bit. You might be like, oh, I'm doing good. And then all of a sudden I say something, you go, oh my gosh, you just like punched me in the gut, So be aware of that. I mean, if you need to get up and leave for a little bit, that's fine. But take care of yourself, okay? Because this might elicit some things out of you, just to let you know. So that's my introduction. We call it the Recovery Journey now. It's worldwide. I mean, it's been really cool. One more thing before I move on. There's no judgment in this room today. You guys are coming in just like me. You're sinful people just like me. You have things in your life that might be embarrassing, might be difficult to even think through. There might be childhood abuse issues in your life. I mean, there's all sorts of things we bring in. There's no judgment here. It's a safe place to be, to listen. I just want to let you know that I'm very strong about confidentiality, safety, and no judgment. Okay, does that make sense? The final thing is, if I make a joke that even sounds a little bit like a joke, you got to laugh, okay? Please, just like indulge me in that whole thing. All right? Is that a deal? All right. So my family, that's Adrian, my son-in-law, my daughter Danielle, my son Tim, who lives over in Hong Kong. That's a Chinese rescue dog that they had over in China when they all lived there. And my daughter brought him back. That's Ranger. It's my wife back there, Jackie, love of my life, been married 37 years. but I really showed this thing so you can be introduced to my granddaughter. I just want to see her. I just want to see her face again, right? That's my little granddaughter, Elsa. And so they say you love your children, but you fall in love with your grandchildren. And that's been the case for me. Sometimes people come to the class and they're like, I just want to listen. I'm here just to listen. You might be on content overload. If you've been to like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 classes in the last day or two, sometimes people just say, just talk to me and I just want to absorb it. That's fine. If you want to do that, you can go to my website later this week and pick up the notes on a PDF. Just download the PDF and you'll have all my notes I'm talking through. But sometimes people, they just want to sit back and get ministered to. Does that make sense? One of the things I'm learning lately, guys, I just edited and wrote a book on Sabbath, solitude, space for our lives. One thing I've learned, I recently thought about, is a lot of what we do is content-based. It's cognitive, it's learning, right? Which is really good, but we don't experience sometimes. You know, we want to create space to experience God working in our lives. It's not just about me learning. It's also about me experiencing my God in this, whatever it is you're doing. I tell people nothing has made me more intimate with God than my grief and my recovery. Those are outside the scriptures. Those are the two things that have brought me intimacy with my God. Because I've had to pull him into my life in really difficult ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's evangelize. Okay, God's like, go ahead, go do that. You know, we do things for God, which is great, but sometimes we pull God into these really difficult areas of our lives. Job said it well. You know, Job went through all the stuff he did. You know, he's like, he spent 30 chapters like questioning God, and his friends are doing all that stuff. And at the end, God like questions him, like, okay, I listened to you, Job. Let me talk to you a little bit, right? And at the very end of it, Job goes, you know, God, I know about you, like I've heard about you, but now I see you. You see, when Job experienced that grief in his life, and he experienced the losses, the trauma, he had to process with God. He goes, I know about you, but now I see you. I'm intimately connected with you now. Does that make sense? Good, good. And by the way, if it does, you can give me an amen. Like, I love the amens. I usually get one sister somewhere. It's like, preach it, brother. You know, so I want to, you know, please do that. So you can always download the notes, and then there's a place you could get a free mental health blog. My passion in life is mental health in the church setting. Okay? So you can, I send out these blogs and stuff, and just ideas about how to manage that. So here we go. Who needs recovery, right? For years it was, oh, there's the porn guys over there. Those guys, boy, get them some recovery going, right? Or there's the alcoholic guy or the girl with drug addiction stuff, right? And you hear those stories and it's very like, whoo, it's heavy-duty stuff, right? I didn't want to be one of those guys at church. Like, church for me is my social life as well. So I really struggle with, like, mixing together my stuff, my personal difficulties, in a church setting is really hard for me. I have brothers I know that they won't do it in a church setting. They're going outside because they don't want to do this stuff where everybody knows them. Everybody knows your name, right? So what I did, when I came along, got my doctorate, they said, Tim, you got to do something with this doctorate thing. You can't just get it. So I was like, okay. And I was struggling with purity issues at the time, and I didn't like what we were doing at church. It felt very shame-based. It felt very kind of negative, kind of boring, kind of like punishment, sort of. It's what it felt like. They didn't intend that to be, but it was what it felt like to me. And I thought, I just want to do something different. So I developed a ministry that I'm going to share with you today that's really different. And one of the things we do is everybody comes for anything they want to come for. So we say anybody with any issue. And who would that include? What do you think some of the issues are we've seen over the years? Real quick, what are some issues that people come for? Trauma, finances. Yeah, for sure. What else? What do people come for? Abuse, drugs. Yeah. Yeah, loneliness, isolation. Yeah. Oh, guys, we provide a safe and confidential space. One of the sisters once told me, she goes, Tim, I've been a Christian like 20 years. 35 years ago, I was abused as a child. And I've never told anybody, not the sisters in the studies, nothing. She goes, I never felt safe enough until I came here and you promised a safe environment. And she goes, so I shared abuse today. She's like crying and stuff. So yeah, childhood trauma happens a lot. What else? What other kind of things? Yes. Anxiety. Who? Yes, ma'am. A lot of men and women, by the way. Almost half and half now. So equal rights, right? I don't know if that was funny or not. You're not supposed. Don't laugh at that. Yeah, go ahead. Overeating, you bet. Codependency, yeah, that whole idea of I live my life to kind of like connect with another person who's struggling, and then we get all wrapped up in each other. Yeah. A lot of fears, a lot of older people coming like, I'm getting to a place where I'm not sure what's happening in my life. Yeah. Insecurities. Everything, guys. Like everything. I had a guy come, yeah, go ahead in the back. Depression, you bet. I had a guy once come for procrastination. He goes, Tim, I'm like 40 years old. I've always procrastinated. I have no idea. I'm always late for everything. People hate me for this. I was like, come on in. Procrastination. I've never seen it before. Somebody just walked in the door like, you're late. No, I'm just kidding. Stay here. But we just say anybody with any issues can come. And here's the thing, too. They can come. We ask them to come for all 9 weeks, but we don't check up on them. If they don't come and they come, they don't come, they come, we leave it up to them. We don't have any accountability in that way. The church can do their own accountability with discipling, but we don't. I had a brother once come off and on for pornography for years. He'd show up 2 times and not see him again, show up again. I tried to help him, by ourselves. And then one time he came in with his whole family and sat right in the middle. The whole time. He brought his wife and kids in, and they went through the whole thing. He just needed to be ready for it. So we don't make people do it. It's totally their choice, okay? So anybody with any issues, we do safe, confidential. It's not shame-based. It's pretty cool. So here's what we're going to do real quick, all right? I want you to look at the person next to you. If they're strangers, I don't care. Just find one person. I want you to share with them one thing that you think in your own life that you feel safe to share, that you feel like you need to work on. Be as vulnerable as you can, but just one thing. Just one thing. Do it for about 30 seconds and then switch. Go. Okay, got about 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2. I ought to put a big clock up there, like, cool. Okay, let's bring it all back together, okay? So you're like, that's totally unfair, Tim. What are you thinking? How do you give us 30 seconds to do something like that? I know, I got it. People hate me for that. It's kind of like that song leader. You're at church, you're like fellowship and having a great time, and they go, okay, now we're singing. shut up and sit down. We're going to sing, And you're like, at least give me a few seconds. So thank you for putting up with me. What just happened in this room? What would you say? She said it. The word connection is what always comes out. I connected to somebody. I have people that go, I don't know the guy's name here, but he's my best friend now. and I say, in 30 seconds, they became your best friend? Yeah. We just connected. Guys, our weakness connects. The Apostle Paul, 12 times in the book of 1st and 2nd Corinthians, he said, I am weak. He said, I'm so weak right now, I'm trembling in front of you. He was vulnerable with his life. He goes, I'm very weak. He just did his ministry via weakness. Where did he learn that from? He learned it from Jesus. 2 Corinthians 13:4 says, Jesus was crucified in weakness. Jesus said, I got no place to lay my head. I'm going to become poor so you can become rich. I'll be a slave and a servant. He learned it from Jesus. Now, the difference is, Paul admitted his weakness because that's who he was. Jesus, on the other hand, decided to be weak. Obviously, he's not weak in and of himself. He's the Son of God. He created the worlds around us. But he made a decision to be weak. And isn't that what attracts you to Jesus? It's the cross. The man went up on a cross in weakness for me. That's what attracts us. Jesus once said, when I'm lifted up, I'm going to draw all men to myself. He said, at the very weakest moment of my life, when I'm lifted up on this cross, that's when people are drawn to me. So I just want to make sure you understand that our weakness is what connects us to other people. It is. When I was in Dallas, man, I used to invite people to church. Hey, come to my church, man. We got big things here, and hundreds and thousands of people. And they're like, no, I got my own church to go to. There's a church on every corner in Dallas. They're all over the place. Then I started meeting people and sharing. I'm part of this recovery group because I'm really struggling with this stuff. And the brothers really helped me. They're like, really? What church is that? Can I come? Yeah. I learned, experientially, if I'm weak with people, they pull in. They're like, yeah, tell me about your church. Weakness, guys, attracts us to people. It makes us connect with other people. I want to share with you a couple concepts, and then we're going to jump in to our weekly devotionals that we have. But here's some things that think differently and that I do differently than maybe some other recovery groups. Number one, we teach a person and not principles. So here's what I did. I'm all doctorate, Mr. So-and-so. I just got out of college. I'm like, I got to do some research. So I went out and I researched as many Christian recovery groups as I could find. I found 9 common principles in those recovery groups. Things like forgiveness, trust, brokenness, community, those kinds of concepts that help people recover. And then I thought, if those are all true, which they are, they're research-based, they're very effective concepts, they're principles that help people. But I thought, if those are true, we can find Jesus doing them. Who said that? Oh, thank you. Got an amen over here. It's not even one of the sisters right now. All right. Thank you, bro. Where was I? You just interrupted me. No, what I thought was, so you can teach forgiveness, for example, which is really good. It's very important. Or we can turn to Luke chapter 7, and let's examine Jesus forgiving this woman. Let's look at the context around it. A bunch of self-righteous Pharisees kind of like jamming on her, right? Let's look at this whole picture. And I found that's much more effective. So one thing we do is we put Jesus right in the middle of people's recovery. And it's so much funner, more fun. We laugh a lot because that's the way Jesus was. He said things that were kind of hilarious at times. We cry as we watch him do things. I still cry when I read Luke 7, like, there's something about him forgiving that woman in that context. So we put a man in front of people, not principles. Number 2, we talk about weakness. It's okay. When people come in, it's kind of interesting. In our groups, anybody comes, and we don't know why people come. They just walk in the door, right? So John Dow, he's a friend of mine, he walks in, and I don't necessarily know why he's even there. So it's a powerful group because we're all kind of like turning ourselves in for something. But we retain our dignity. So we don't do the, hey, my name's Tim and I'm a sex addict. We just don't do that. That's not my identity anymore. My identity was baptized 41 years ago, and I'm a Christian who struggles with things. But that's not who I am. So I don't buy that. I don't. You can talk to me about it later if you want. It's a concept. It's a real difference in what we do. We don't identify ourselves by our bad behavior. And I'm going to show you our second devotional. We make that very clear. Thirdly, we talk about resources a lot. I tell people I'm not enough for you. In my counseling, oftentimes I'll tell people I'm not enough for you. I'm going to help you, but I'm not enough. Years ago, I do a lot of flying around the U.S. to do these workshops, and I'm in these airplanes, and when they descend, my ears, guys, I kid you not, it'd be like somebody's jabbing an ice pick in my head. For about 20 minutes, I'm bent over, I'm crying, I'm stomping my feet on the ground because the pain is so intense. I just have a problem with my eustachian tubes, and they're not constructed correctly. And I got to the point where I can't stand this, I'm not going to fly anymore. And so I started asking people advice, hey, what do you think about that? They're, oh, Tim, you should try this earplug. Okay, I tried it, got little holes in it, didn't work. Oh, do the little red pills, those help me. Chew gum. Okay, I'll try gum. Swallow all the time. I'm swallowing. Nothing helped. And then one day at my job, I was talking to a nurse, and she goes, Tim, do them all at once. I'm like, bing. Such an idiot. Like, I never thought of doing everything at once. So I have this little kit now when I fly, and I do them all at the same time. And I've never had a problem since. It's been like, thank you, Jesus. I mean, guys, it was really seriously problematic for me. So the same thing with resources. Sometimes we're like looking for that silver bullet, like the one thing, the one book, the one counselor, the one discipling partner, the one whatever, the sermon that's going to make the difference. And I say, do them all. Like we tell people, we're not here just to fix you. Like we want to provide safety for you and all these different things. But do more. Do stuff when you leave us. Like do stuff when we're not holding meetings. Go find other people to help you. Find people that aren't in our church. Go find a really good counselor out there. I mean, there's all sorts of resources. So we really promote resources. We promote dignity. Guys, we're humans. I had a woman who come who's an evangelist's wife, and she's been in the ministry 40 years or something. She said, Tim, this is the first time I've ever come to something where I'm not a leader. I'm just me. And that really struck me. Her whole life is framed around, I'm a leader, I got to have answers. And I said, you come and just be you. And I tell people, don't treat her like a leader, just be you. So we want to have dignity. The church, the leaders in church don't get to know who comes. I've had guys, hey, how's so-and-so doing it in motion? I'm like, I don't know, ask him if you want to, but I'm not here to tell you that. That's his deal. So we don't, they're not allowed to know who comes, or certainly not allowed to know what they're working on. I don't even know what most people work on there. And I lead the thing. It's not my business. So we offer dignity to people. Time and space is really important. So in hockey, if you ever, any hockey fans? Yeah. So the defenseman's coming up the ice with the puck, and the announcer always says he has time and he has space. It's a concept. He has time to do something, and he's got some ice around him to do it. And that hit me. I thought, time and space for recovery. We need time. So we ask people, dedicate a couple hours a week to this. It took you a long time to get where you are. It's going to take you a while to get out. Dedicate some time. And then you need a space, which is safe and confidential people. You need a group of people that can kind of like listen to you, hold on to your stuff, not judge you. So it gives you space to do your thing. So remember that one, time and space. It doesn't happen quickly. We help people develop resilience. We relapse. Most people relapse at times. And we don't go back to square one when you relapse. You're like, okay, back to the starting line, buddy. We don't do that kind of stuff. Most of us have problems, and we get better, and then we relapse at times. for a season or whatever. We talk about progress and not perfection. We don't do any graduation dates. We don't do that kind of stuff. Because life is like this big, long, messy thing, and it goes up and down. You know, we want people to get better. We have a lot of people go, yeah, you know, I'm not struggling with that at all. I'm just coming to maintain my sobriety. That's great. But other people come in, they're like, oh, I messed up again, you know. And we just say, okay, it's a relapse. How do you learn resilience through those relapses? What are you learning from your relapse? Like, what do you learn from it? Good. Let's move on. Let's keep going. Grace covers that stuff. So that's really important, resilience. And then we go grace reliant, guys. You know, we understand that Jesus is at his best when we're at our worst. We are very grace-based, okay? And so we don't want to beat people up. We just want to help them get better. And isn't that the way Jesus was? He just wanted people to get better. You know, Malchus's ear gets whopped off his head. Jesus didn't stand there and go, okay, let's diagnose, like, which is what happened. Peter, come here. That was a funny joke. Come on. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. I appreciate somebody laughing at me. They didn't do that. Jesus doesn't do a bunch of diagnosis on stuff. Well, that was a sharp blade you had there. Why don't you dull that thing up a little bit? He just picks up the air and puts it back on the guy's head. Jesus' heart was just to help people get better. So let's look at some of this stuff, right? We have 4 hallmarks. We have 4 things that we advocate, we press for, we talk about a lot. These are like the foundational pieces of recovery, things that everybody must do to get better. We weave this into everything we do. The first one is walking with Jesus, right? That's number 1. We ask people, examine your walk and improve your walk with Jesus. And I tell people, find a new Jesus every day of your life. Everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute, Tim. What do you mean by that? You mystic, you. Thank you. Here's what I do. My wife, I don't know if she's here or not. Hopefully she is. If she isn't, talk about her. She was a Catholic, and when she studied the Bible at churches back in the days where you had the Going Forward song, remember those Going Forward songs? And you sing Just As I Am like 700 times. Jackie would always walk down like this. She got her head down. She was that guilty Catholic, right? That was her Jesus that she's been working on for 40 years now. It's ingrained in her to be guilty, I'm not enough, I'm insecure, that kind of thing. That was her Jesus. So she always has to look for a new Jesus. Like Jesus has to become new to her in many ways. I, on the other hand, was the party Jesus. I'm like going out to get drunk one night. Jesus like, hey, go for it, Tim. We'll talk about it later. You know, that was kind of my concept of Jesus. Like, yeah, we'll deal with it later, Jesus. We're good. So I've had to deal with that Jesus all my life. Like, you know, Jesus has some like regulations and justice, and he has expectations for me, right? So one thing we ask people in recovery, because in recovery, oftentimes, your view of Jesus and God is skewed. You look at them in weird ways that aren't true. So we advocate, always find a new Jesus in your life. Number 2 is we ask people to find a scripture-based program for your problem. Remember I said, hey, everybody comes, right? No matter what it is, you're thinking, how do you talk to everybody about all their specific things? How many of you guys thought that? I've thought that before. Like, we don't write curriculum for all the different stuff going on. Pornography, drugs, procrastination. What we do is we say, you find something that addresses your need and bring it with you. It could be a book. It could be private counseling. It might be an AA group if that's what's working for you. But we tell people, because you've got specific issues in your life, you've got to get some specific help. Matter of fact, we teach that Satan is a what? He's a big fat liar. I don't know if he's fat or not, but he's big. And that's his native language. It's what he does. It's who he is. It's how he hurts us. It's through lies. So basically, dysfunction and needing recovery is simply because we've lived our lives based on lies. And so we keep perpetuating lies in our life. You know, the classic one is the dad whose father told him, you're no good, you'll never be much. And then so he gets a job, and he starts climbing the corporate ladder to prove to his dad that he's going to be something. His dad dies, and he's still climbing the corporate ladder. He's already made $6 million, owns a big house, and he's still working. And he leaves his family behind, kind of stuff, right? That's a person living his life based on a lie. And I see that kind of stuff all the time. So we ask people, find a program that begins to push against those lies in your life. Have you done that when you read a book, right? You read a book, you go, oh my gosh, I just read this. Like, this is amazing. That's what that is. You've just been confronted with a lie, the truth to a lie. And it gets you excited. That's all it is. So we say bring a scripture-based program to the class. Bring something that's going to walk you through your recovery. Does that make sense? This is probably the one that's most difficult, okay? This is the one that or if people don't connect, it's usually because of that. They're like, yeah, I never really, found myself a program. I'm like, well, okay, come back next time. Number 3, engaging a mentor. All recovery is socially based. We just are not created to get better by ourselves. I mean, there's, of course, things you do by yourself in silence, solitude, reading, all those things, we do that. But we say that all recovery involves other humans at some level. So and what we say is go engage a mentor. By the way, do you notice the first words are all what? They're all verbs. Walk, work, engage, nurture. We say this, don't stand around and wait for someone to come get you. We have people come in and go, hey, I'm here. I'm like, okay, and? And they're like, well, I'm here. Kind of do something for me. And I'm like, no, this is a very much a personal, you got to do it. And this is a big one here. And we just tell people, go find somebody that gets you, who feels safe. Maybe they're a little bit ahead of you in the game and where you're headed, but they're safe people. They'll meet with you maybe every Saturday morning at Starbucks just to chat with you about what you're doing. Maybe it's the guy that studied the Bible with you 25 years ago in another region somewhere. Maybe it's a friend at work. They don't have to be Christians. What we use is the word effective. Are they effective in your life? Do they help you move through your recovery? So we don't, in a sense, don't really care who you find, but find somebody that helps you move through stuff. That's the point, is recovery. And then finally, this one hit me later in life, but nurturing a dream. Finding something in your life that's bigger than you as you recover. We always think in a linear way. I'm doing bad, I'll get better, and then I'll do something for God. And I say, no. If you look at all the heroes in the Bible, they were all messed up as they were doing cool things. They were all struggling. David's having adultery with some woman. I mean, everybody was struggling with something. But that's not when they didn't get through the struggle and then go do something cool for God. So we say, find something that's bigger than you that will hold you in the ball game. One of the things for me is this. I want this to keep going on. So I can't afford to spend a bunch of time in sin. So this is one of the things that kind of pulls me through, and it's bigger than me. So in my mind, what that says is God's got to go, uh-oh, look what Tim's trying to do. That's way bigger than he is. He's got no brains for this thing. So I think he engages me more because I'm dreaming for God. I'm like, God, I want to do this for you. So God's like, all right, hold on a second. Let me help you do this, which is what we want, right? So these are the 4 hallmarks of the recovery journey. Oh, and by the way, if you've got questions, right afterwards I'll field questions, okay? So, and then I've got a booth downstairs, so you can always come by my booth and say, hey, I got a question for you. I don't agree with that or whatever, okay? So I'm going to go through the 9 weeks really quick, all right? So just kind of like let me talk and babble a bunch. The first thing we do is Jesus' creative heart to heal. We do a whole week on kind of building up people's faith in Jesus that he wants to help me. So we go through all of his healings in one lesson. We run through all of them, don't we, John? We just do. It's really cool. And what we talk about is how creative he was. What are some of the weird things Jesus did when he healed people? What were they? He spit. You know where he spit on? Their eyes and their tongue. Would you mind if I grabbed your tongue and just just did a, wouldn't that be weird? Do you think one time he spit in mud, he made mud, he stuck it in the guy's eyes. And it didn't work all the way, they had to redo it, like, okay, so he spit. What else did he do? Yeah, the ear thing. He just like picked it up, dusted it off. I would imagine he stuck it back on him. The guy in the back just went like this. One time he just went up and he just stuck his fingers in the guy's ears. Like, isn't that weird? Like, how would you like me to do that? Like just like, but do them both at the same time. Well, you'd be like, yeah. Yeah, that's another one, just, they're like, I thought you were going to like say something to me or something, Anything else? There's a couple more, yeah. Yeah. One time he just threw a bunch of demons and like 2,000 pigs and they ran off the hillside. Yeah, that's one of our weeks. We're going to talk about that one, yeah. There are sometimes he healed a guy and he's like, not quite where I want to get. He goes, hold on, let's do it again. And then the guy goes, oh, I can really see now, yeah. Just like the internet, right? You just like through the airwaves. Can you imagine? You ever watch those magician shows on TV? You're like, come on, how did you do that? You're like examining him. Like Jesus would just go check out your daughter and she's going to be good. I think there's one more hand, yeah. Yeah, an embarrassed woman, like a woman who had done everything she could do. And he wasn't even aware of it. And he finally stopped, like, wait a minute, and he like stops the show right there and come here, and he pulls her out in the crowd. And one cool thing is she humbled herself, but she wasn't humiliated. And she was exposed. She was made known, but not exposed. In other words, everybody knew her, but it wasn't like she was on show. Amazing. Guys, so we just talk about the creative heart of Jesus. He doesn't template things. It's not my way or the highway. A lot of recoveries like that highway thing, like do it this way or you don't do it at all. Jesus was all over the map. He could have had one standard thing he did, like boom, okay, you're good. Boom, you're good. He was creative. So we talk about the very first week, Jesus' creative heart to heal. Then we do a thing on innocence and identity. That's me in the Volkswagen before I ever remember being like sinful or being abused or anything. That was before all that. And that's me on the left, the really handsome guy, and two of my brothers. And yeah, it's me. Close my eyes. Probably my oldest brother was like goosing me or something. I don't know, but we're gonna do something real quick. Okay, I need somebody in the crowd that knows how to count to 100. Count to 100. We have Holly, come on up. All the way up. Come on. Hey, way to go, Holly. Yay. Come on. I need your guys' help on this one big time, okay? Yay. Well, you're healed. Let me stick my... Count to 10 real quick. I want to make sure you know how to count.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, we're good. Okay. Here's what I need you guys to do. It's going to take 3 minutes. We're going to convince you today that God is serious about your identity. Okay? We're going to convince you today. What I want you to do as a crowd is to yell out everything you know in the scriptures of what God calls us. Things like, he calls like new creation, daughter, saint, born again, all the different things that identify you as who you are. But you got to like yell a lot, like really loud. And then she's going to count them under her breath. Are you ready? Every time you hear one, you just count in your head. Okay, you don't have to say it out loud. Okay, ready? Are you guys ready? You got to really get into this. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Real quick, a couple more, hurry up. Thank you. Okay, we're good, we're good. What did you get to? 50-something?
56.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yay, way to go. Hey, I appreciate somebody's social anxiety saying, pick me. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, we did this. We got up to 93. And, you guys are so many of them. I'm sure she missed a ton of them. What's the point? The point is God goes to great lengths to convince us of who we are. This is not because you had a great day today. It's not because you had a great quiet time this morning. It's not because you reached out to somebody and baptized them yesterday. This is who you are when you become a Christian. Period. And you got to get up and walk away from this to lose this. Okay, I understand people can walk away from God. But guys, God goes to great lengths to say, I want you to know who you are. And this changes people's lives. I had a brother come up to me once. He goes, Tim, after that lesson on identity, he goes, I went home and tried to look at porn, and I just couldn't do it. He said this stuff was like rattling around my head. And he goes, I just couldn't bring myself to do that. And I'm like, that's the point. Yeah. Now, here's the thing, guys. This is simply the academic side of it. You're like, okay, I got it, Tim, I got it. But here's the challenge. I think here's the difficult part. It's kind of like when people say, I need more faith. I don't buy that. Yeah. My question is, you need more faith in what or who? Faith is not the issue. It's the object of your faith isn't where it needs to be. It's the same way with identity. You can say, these are my identities and blah, blah, blah. And like, identity in who? It's in Jesus. And that's, to me, that's like the crux of it is, how well do I know this man? He's not the best character in the Bible, by the way. He's not the most famous character in the Bible. Jesus is actually the living Word of God walking around. He is the Bible. And so the challenge isn't simply to know the names. That's good. It's like the start. But it's to know the character of the man behind the name. And that's a lifetime deal, right? That's one of those things when you're like 98 years old, you're still cranking through that piece, right? So identity, innocence and identity, it was bought at the cross. Thank you. Yes, amen. Okay, let's move on. The third week we do brokenness or denial. We talk about the man who was an invalid for 38 years. Remember that guy? And Jesus goes, hey, what's the deal here? And he said, well, every time the water gets stirred, I go down there and I always get beat up for it. Somebody beats me to it. So you can imagine, like, my guess is, okay, after a while it gets a little discouraging. Maybe he starts going, whatever. I tried that before, right? We've done that in our recovery, haven't we? We kind of like figure out ways of like, well, it's just the way I am, or I'll be okay. We deny kind of where we've been. And there's something about brokenness. Now, guys, this is the hardest one we have to teach, isn't it, John? I think it is. Because I can't quite nail down brokenness. I can't say, go do these 3 things and you'll get broken. But I do know when I'm broken is when God does his work. There's something about me presenting myself to God as a broken man. And then that's when I see God working in my life. So this one's a hard one. This is just one of those things. One of the ways we do help people, though, is we talk about idols in their life. And there's a cool verse in Ezekiel 14 about idols. It's pretty graphic. It's like, I'm not going to say it in here because it's pretty graphic. Read it. But basically, we ask people, instead of looking at the top of the iceberg, the things people see, like with pornography, for example, what you see is somebody on a computer looking at stuff, right? Well, we say, look underneath that also, that bottom 90% of the iceberg. And those tend to be our idols. And some people break them down to just 3 simple idols, either comfort, significance, or control. And it's kind of a cool way to frame your life. Like, I've got all 3 of these in different ways, but what's my predominant thing I'm looking for in my life? Is it comfort? Maybe, I don't know, maybe I was traumatized as a kid, and so I seek comfort all the time. Maybe it's significance. I'm getting older, and I got to make a mark somewhere, and I want to be important or something. Is it control? Somebody's hurt me in the past, and now I'm not going to let anybody do that again, and I have to control issues. So we ask people, get down below that iceberg and work at that level the best you can. That's the most sustainable way to make change. Now, we can do the top thing, which is good. Dealing with that top is good. Stop drinking, put the alcohol away. Don't, put all the cigarettes, throw them away, flush them down the toilet, whatever. That's important because usually what that does, it opens up the heart for the stuff below. Some people are like, oh, don't tell me about a filter on a computer. I don't believe in that stuff. Usually if you put a filter on a computer and you quit looking at it for a couple weeks, then you can start looking at this stuff below. So that's the brokenness week. And then we get into miracle and change. You guys know who this is about, right? The demoniac, right? Guy was out of control. Some of you guys are like, yep, that was me. When they found the demoniac healed, the Bible says he was dressed in what? In his right mind. So we talk here about like a change of mind. Like this is where we do the thing with Satan being a liar. We're like, what lies are you living by? And how are you going to clear those things up? That man was changed in his right mind. And the Bible says he went off to the Decapolis to tell everybody. It didn't say he went to evangelize the Decapolis. You know what it says? It says he went to tell what Jesus had done for him. That's important. We think evangelism is inviting people to church. Please do that. That's good. That's really not evangelism. That's getting people to church, which is good. It's good. It's a good thing. Evangelism, I think, is sharing your faith. Like, let me tell you what Jesus did for me. Let me tell you where I was. Let me tell you how he's changed my heart since I became a Christian. That's pretty cool, too. It's one thing to say, yeah, before I was a Christian, I was this guy. It's pretty cool, too, to say, last week, here's how he impacted my life. So we do that week. Jesus speaks into our hearts a solution to our life's problems. He speaks simplicity into life's complexities with words that cut right to the core of who we are and what we need for change. Have you ever thought your life was complex? I got some bad news, it is. If you're human, your life is pretty complex. And, when we get complexity, we're like, thing right in front of us. I'm horrible, I'm bad. This is impossible to change. And then you go to the scriptures and you read like one of those stories about Jesus. You're like, oh, there it is. There's my answer. You've read that thing like 600 times already. The thing about Jesus, he speaks simplicity into our complexity. I love that about him. Keep reading your Bibles. We do a week on the woman, the Canaanite woman. And she goes like, hey, Jesus, I need my daughter to be healed. She's really sick. Jesus is like, I didn't really come for you guys. I came for the Israelites. Sorry. And what does she do? She kind of fights back. She's like, hey, wait, hold on a second, Jesus. Time out. Even the dogs get to eat crumbs. And Jesus goes, wow, I've never seen such faith in all Israel. Your daughter's healed. We talk about trust when things get difficult. And you got to push back on Jesus sometimes. Sometimes we get to these blocks in our recovery and we're tending to give up. And that's where you say, wait a minute, God, wait a minute. I'm serious about this. And they do that for us so that we can build character to get beyond. When you get to a block, it's not because God's like mad at you or doesn't like you. It's your way of like building strength. So that's where you've got to really grit and go for it, get more faith. We bank on the verse in 1 John chapter 2, or chapter 4, it says there's no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear because fear has to do with punishment. We say memorize that verse, chew on it. Learn how to trust and love at times when it's really difficult, not fear. Don't give in to fear. And it's really a good week. We talk a lot about what are you fearful of. This is the most talked about one that we do, forgiveness and power. We do the woman in Luke chapter 7. And this is the one that most people are most heart impacted by. There's something about forgiveness that, I don't know. I mean, it's the very heart of God is forgiveness. So we talk about, in forgiveness, the broken woman that's been healed. And we just talk about how forgiveness changes us. It changes other people around us. So by the way, after all these devotionals, we do about a 30-minute devotional. We do break into small groups of 3 people each. They're just men, women groups, but only 3 each, small groups, and you get to talk, and you get uninterrupted talk. It's really cool. So we do that. We have one on relationships and community. The 4 guys that took the guy up on the roof. Remember that guy? That's a pretty cool one. And we talk there about, what are the 4 friends that you have? It's really interesting. The Bible says some people brought the invalid. So a bunch of people did. And then 4 of them. I always ask people this question. What was it about that invalid that engendered such loyalty? There's something about him that everybody's like, I want to help, I want to help. And I tell you, in recovery, what is it about you that makes people want to help you? Make sure you're buying the coffee on Saturdays. Make sure you're buying the dinner for people. Don't just show up like, all right, get me better. Be engaged with it, okay? So we do 5 friends in their faith. The Bible says when they lowered the guy in, Jesus saw all of their faith. It says when he saw their faith, he healed the man. So 4 of your faithful friends. Then we end up our last 2 groups with, this one's called the obscure becomes clear. This is the guy that got his blindness healed twice. Remember Jesus did the healing, and then the guy goes, I just see a bunch of trees walking around. Jesus like, oh, hold on a second. And then he comes back and he kind of does it again. And the guy goes, oh, good, now I see people walking around. We just talk about what in the last 7 weeks has helped you. We consolidate change on this one. We're like, let's gather about what's happened so far. There's times you just got to pull back in and say, what's been good for me? And everybody gets to share, this week here was my best week or whatever. And we consolidate what's happened already. Okay? Does that make sense? And then the last week is pretty cool. We actually invite the whole church to come out to our group. Anybody who wants to come out, we have a dinner for them or a lunch or whatever. And during this week, it's the man born blind, and we talk about faith going forward. We talk about now that the group's over with for a couple of months, what are you going to go do? Like, how are you going to carry on your recovery after this group? We only do this group twice a year for 9 weeks at a time. And so people are like, I'm going to meet with my brothers here every Sunday morning. We have a check-in time. Or me and the 2 sisters here, we're going to finish the book that we're reading. We're going to have a little book club afterwards. We're trying to teach people sustainable recovery. Your recovery is not just based on you coming into this group. It's almost like we're training people to go ahead. Does that make sense? Good, good. So those are our weeks. In conclusion, guys, I just want to share with you, and then we'll have some Q&A. Think differently. Don't just buy into everything that's happened around you before. God's creative. Think differently. Think about resources, okay? That's really important. Focus on how Jesus helps people. I just love that. I've been studying that man, and I'm a professional counselor. I'm astounded at his ability to listen and to ask questions that people change. I mean, that's my business. So I study him all the time. How does he do that? Why did he ask that question at that time to that person in such a way that they're like, thank you, I'm free, thank you very much. So focus on how Jesus helps people. Use as many resources you can come up with and stay socially connected. And then finally, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here, listening. This is a hard crowd, right? After lunch, this is a crowd of people are like sleeping and stuff. I get it. Look at this guy over here. You're out of here. I really do appreciate it. I've got a table downstairs. I'd love you to come down and just share your story with me, or just get to meet you and hear a little bit more about who you are. I've got 3 books that I've written and that I sell. The Recovery Journey is brand new. At the heart of it are those 9 devotionals I just shared, but it's wrapped around a lot of other work. We do the Grief Journey. Some of you guys might have come to that class. I apologize for repeating my jokes and stuff. But the Grief Journey is all about like working through a grief problem in your life, and it takes you through a route that's based on how Jesus did it. And then finally, we just collaborated with a lot of therapists in our fellowship on the journey of the soul. And that's more contemplative practices, spiritual disciplines, meditation, lectio divina, contemplative prayer, things like that. And here's what I'm realizing as I set up my table is the first two books are kind of like the cognitive how-to learning parts. The third book is a book that's going to help you develop space for it. And I never really connected that until this week. We need space. We need like that experiential space with God to be quiet and listen to him. So anyways, come down. I'll be there till after church tomorrow. Thank you very much. I want to open it up for a few questions here. I want to ask you to keep the questions either ask about a clarification of something I said, right? Like, oh, I didn't quite understand what you meant by that. Or kind of a question that's general enough that everybody could benefit from it. You know what I'm saying? So if it's like real specific, I can talk to you later about it. Okay, in the back there, yes. It's kind of what we do every morning in a quiet time, right? We're kind of trying to discover newness. Like, I could ask you, do you know everything there is to know about Jesus? You say, no, of course not. So we just say, in recovery, look for a new Jesus every day. Like, examine your walk with him. Find new ways of connecting to him. Like I said before, my grief and my recovery are the two most intimate things I've ever done with Jesus. Sure. Yeah. Kind of like if you're married or something. I've been married 37 years, and I still learn a lot of cool things about my wife. Like, I never knew that about you, or how about that? I can't believe you said that, things like that. Good question. Thank you. Yes, in the back there. I'm sorry. I had a hard. Yes. No, we do them on Zoom. So we do them twice a year. We do them like in Denver, we do them from like February to May, and then we do them from September to November. Those are like the best two. We've done them on Zoom. We just did one. We collaborated with 4 different churches on Zoom: Winnipeg, Vancouver, LA, and Denver. It's really cool. We've done them where people around the world come on Zoom. So it works really well. It's not as good as in person, but this is very flexible. It can be done with 2 people. You can sit down with the book together with your friend and just work through it together. You can do it in a small group. You can do them on Zoom. You can do them by yourself. So you can ask me about that at my table, okay? Because we're just rebranding all this. We're getting it back up and running for Zoom again. So yeah, would you come down and see me? Thank you very much. Other questions? Yes, sir, in the back. Oh. I feel like it's like, would you take out the trash, please? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. That's just not a safe person. I might go get a beer with them or something and hang out and go watch a hockey game with the guy, but they're not a safe person for me to open up my heart with. And the way there's a couple of things with safe people. One is if you share something, they reciprocate a bit. They don't just go, oh, thanks for sharing that. They reciprocate, like they come back and say, I've really struggled with that too. So that's one way I know a person's safe, is if they come back and they say, yeah, or they share something that's vulnerable with me. There's a matching of vulnerability. And if there's not that, then I'm like, not sure if they're safe. Certainly if they ever talk about me. I used to share my sin with a guy down in Dallas, and then, a week later somebody else come up, hey, Tim, I heard you were struggling with this. I'm like, wait a minute, I only shared it with one person. Somehow this is getting around. That's not safety. Okay? So sometimes you got to kind of test it a little bit. And if they're not safe, they're not safe. That's okay. They're not evil people, but they're just not somebody that you're probably going to share your life with in that way. So that's okay. I've got friends that are all different measures for me. It's fine. Yeah. You bet I do. I've been a Christian 41 years, thought I was, all mature and old and stuff like that. And then I went to Alaska last summer for a week-long retreat where we're teaching people spiritual disciplines. And I learned the value of creating space for God to speak to me. I'd never done it before. I would take prayer walks and things like that. That's good. But it was always me talking to God. And so I'm learning how to build spiritual disciplines in my life. You might hear the word spiritual formation. It's kind of famous nowadays. But it's the idea of giving God space so that he can speak to you. It's really important, especially when we're stuck. When we're stuck, that might be an invitation from God. It might be God going, hey, I really want to talk to you. So being stuck is not bad if you recognize it. Maybe God's got a message for you. So building space in your life. I don't know, you may not go to Alaska like I did, but do you take a day every week? Do you take a chunk of time every week just to say, this is me and God. And God, I'm here to listen to you. I'm going to read my scriptures, but I'm also want to listen to you. That's a thought for you. Somebody had their hand up over here. I missed like 5 minutes ago. Was that you? Okay. If I have a steak dinner to eat, I can eat the mashed potatoes. It's a good start, isn't it? I may not eat the whole thing yet, but I can get those mashed potatoes, a couple bites of that steak, and I'm on my road. If that's all you can do is read it by yourself, that's a really good start. It's a way to get going. If for some reason you're on an island by yourself, or maybe you're just not ready to open up with somebody else, there's journaling in here, so you can journal by yourself and stuff. And then maybe after a while, you invite your friend in for you. Like, hey, would you sit with me with this? Or you get a couple guys. You get a Bible talk to do it. It's a good Bible talk group thing. But yeah, I write all my books designed for either the individual all the way up to big groups. There was one, I'm sorry, right in the back here. Yeah, in the blue. It just depends on what your need is, I think. It's your need. A lot of people are going through a lot of grief. Grief's one of those, it's kind of like a painful thing that you want to get to. So if you've got grief in your life that you feel pretty stuck in, the grief journey is probably maybe one of the quicker ways of, it's a 6-week thing that we walk people through. That if that's it for you, but maybe you're just stuck in some character thing or whatever, and you need some recovery going. They're all good. I do all 3 for $40, by the way, just let you know. I'm not trying to be a salesman guy, but some people just buy all 3. They saves them $10, and then they've got them all as resources. Do I do audio? No, I'm too insecure about my voice. No, somebody wants me to do an audio book, so I just hired a marketer guy, so I'm sure we're going to start doing all sorts of weird things. Yeah. A purple book? That's the grief recovery method. Yeah. It highly impacted my life. It highly impacted me. They don't like to do it in the church setting, though. Okay, good. They don't want you to do it at church. Well, I mean, they're okay if you do it at church, but you got to stop the group, and then you've got to say, okay, we're done with the group now. Okay, hey, how about God? And so it's kind of like separated a little bit, but they highly impacted me. They're really good people, and they do a great job. Yeah, the one in the middle is, I kind of baptized some of the stuff they did. Okay? Because God just does a better job than people that don't use God. God's just smarter, and So you come down and I'll talk to you about it, but it's very aligned, but it's bigger and better. I just say that. I'm sorry, I don't want to, be boastful or something. Yeah. Okay. Let me do this. Let me talk to you right afterwards, okay? Because that's a really interesting question. Let me take one other question and then we'll be done. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Google's my best friend, man. I'm serious. You Google Ezekiel 14 and idols, and you're going to get a lot of good commentary on that stuff. The idea behind it is to go underneath and see what's causing your behavior. That's the idea. Idols are like the big things that we worship. So we don't do the statutes and all that anymore. We don't work, but we will worship comfort. We worship significance, things like that. So it's the idea of getting underneath your dysfunction, whatever that might be. So yeah, just Google those two things and you're going to get more than you can handle. You guys, thank you so much. I'm going to stick around for a while. If you want to come up and buy a book, you can just do it here. But thank you very much.